But the question, I suppose, for Trump lovers, and I think, their defense of him, and it's all over right-wing media right now, and all over the Trumposphere, and he's doubling down, by the way. He tweeted out a picture this morning or Truth Social, a picture this morning of Kamala Harris with her mother's family, her mother and her mother's mother, and the father. They're all Indian and brothers and sisters and things, and said, "Thank you, Kamala, for reminding us of your Indian ancestry." It raises the question: are J.D. Vance's kids Indian, Caucasian, or both? I mean, this whole Republican obsession with identity politics, well, really with race. I mean, that's the bottom line here, is just, I was going to say bizarre, but what it really is just racist. Louise and I were talking about this morning, and I pointed out, for 21 years on this program, our black callers have been saying there's a lot more white racists than you realize. You all think that most white people aren't racist. Not true. And, for much of my life, I would have been very skeptical about an assertion like that. But I can tell you, over the last 20 years, I've figured it out. There are a hell of a lot more white racists out there than anybody expected. And Richard Nixon pandered to them with his whole law and order thing and his silent majority and his war on drugs. Ronald Reagan pandered to them, talking about young bucks in front of you in the checkout line at the supermarket getting steak with their food stamps. Doesn't that piss you off? And going to Philadelphia, Mississippi, where Goodman, Schwimmer, and Cheney were murdered, the three civil rights workers, and giving a speech to an all-white audience. His first speech of his presidential campaign in 1980, Ronald Reagan did, about states' rights, which, of course, was code for maintaining segregation. The only president that the only Republican president that I can think of that didn't explicitly pander to black and white racism was George W. Bush, although he certainly did a number on Muslims. But anyhow, there's that. There was a huge prisoner swap this morning. There's a Donald Trump piece to this too. You'll recall a couple of weeks ago, Trump came out and made the public statement that Putin was not going to release any prisoners until after the election because, once Trump is elected, Putin will do that as a thank you to him because they're such good friends. And, well, yeah, I mean, they are, dictators of a feather flock together and all that kind of thing. But Joe Biden pulled this thing off. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, the Biden-Harris administration. The Russians released Paul Whelan, who, by the way, was taken by the Russians during Trump's presidency in 2018, and Trump did absolutely nothing to get him released, at least nothing that any of us can see in any news reports. He released Evan Gershkovich, the Wall Street Journal reporter, who was taken a little over a year ago, I believe. Putin also released Alsu Kirmashiva and Vladimir Kara-Murza. Vladimir Kara-Murza was an opposition politician who was sort of loosely aligned with Alexei Navalny. Alsu Kirmashiva, I don't know much about, other than that apparently she's a journalist. And I'm assuming it's a she. This is what President Biden said in a public statement this morning. He said the deal that secured their freedom was a feat of diplomacy. All told, we've negotiated the release of 16 people from Russia, including 5 Germans and 7 Russian citizens who were political prisoners in their own country. Some of these women and men have been unjustly held for years. All have endured unimaginable suffering and uncertainty, and today their agony is over. He added, I'm grateful to our allies who stood with us through tough, complex negotiations to achieve this outcome, including Germany, Poland, Slovenia, Norway, and Turkey. This is a powerful example of why it's vital to have friends in this world whom you can trust and depend upon. And of course, that's kind of a sideways swipe or a backhand swipe at Donald Trump also, because, Trump basically disses all of our allies and just says, oh, let's just suck up to the dictators. So, there is that. Also, J.D. Vance is jumping in on, Trump playing the race card. This is pathetic. He told reporters, quote, it's hysterical about how much the media is overreacting. He said the president doesn't do scripted BS stuff. He actually goes into hostile audiences. He answers tough questions. He pushes back against them, but he actually answers them. Actually, he didn't. I mean, that's why the reporters kept saying, Mr. Trump, you're not answering the question. Meanwhile, today, Chuck Schumer has scheduled a vote on the floor of the Senate for the child tax credit. Now, the child tax credit, it was originally passed as part of the American Rescue Act back in 2021. President Biden, a major accomplishment, got it through the House and Senate. Of course, the Democrats were in charge of both at the time. And it reduced child poverty in America by half. It lifted millions, tens of millions of children out of poverty in the United States. And what this tax credit does is it's a maximum refundable amount per child of $1,800 in 2023, $1,900 in 2024, and that would be because 2023 is because people this year will be filing last year's taxes. $1,900 in 2024 and $2,000 in 2025, and then after that it's inflation adjusted. The bill also expands the low-income housing tax credit that Senator Ron Wyden, my senator here from Oregon, says will, quote, add more than 200,000 affordable housing units nationwide. Chuck Schumer on the floor of the House, or the Senate rather, said, I urge my Republican colleagues not to stand in the way of helping parents and small businesses and families keep a roof over their heads when it's time to vote on Thursday, which is today. Kamala Harris tweeted back in March of 2023, our budget restores this tax credit permanently because we believe it's our duty to invest in our nation's children. Well, it wasn't permanent. It ended up expiring last year, or perhaps it was earlier this year. I believe it was earlier this year, and throwing those children right back into poverty. Now, in 2018, Kamala Harris, when she was in the Senate, co-sponsored that same legislation. It didn't pass then. And in 2023, she teamed up with fellow Democrats to pass a budget that would have made it permanent. That budget didn't pass, though, because of Republican obstruction. But today there will be a vote in the Senate, and J.D. Vance apparently is not going to show up for that vote. He went on Fox News on Monday and lied. I mean, this is just incredible. He went on Fox News, and he said that Kamala Harris was, quote, calling for an end to the child tax credit. No, she's one of the authors of it. She's calling for it to be passed. But he, honest to God, he literally went on Fox News and right into the camera said Kamala Harris is calling for an end to the child tax credit. This guy is, I mean, there's just no bottom for these people. There's just no bottom. It's crazy. All righty. A new poll, by the way, showing abortion is a critical issue for Democratic voters. I'll share a little more of that with you after the break at the bottom of the hour. I've got to share with you my this amazing story of what's going on in Georgia right now, right after this. Stay with us.